So I am going to be teaching a little bit from my hard copy book, The Bible's Hidden Divination and Magic. So I'm only going to focus on like maybe 1 to 2 chapters, and specifically the high priest and crystals, okay? Give me a second. All right, let me get logged in, just in case I need to rely on my computer for anything. So if you guys don't have my latest hard copy book, The Bible's Hidden Divination and Magic, okay? Yes, magic and divination practiced in the Bible, okay? It's also can be used as a deconstruction tool. Like if you know that you have like the witchy spirit like me, you know that you like the occult and mystic arts, but you grew up in a Christian like household or whatever, or went to church, and you have people throwing scriptures at you about divination and magic in the Bible being condemnable. I answer those questions in here. I spent hundreds of hours researching, and it's almost 300 pages, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I do have a cough drop in my mouth. Hold on. You guys, hit the heart. All right, so like I said, I'm going to be talking about the high priests and some of their divinatory practices. Let me find, and this is a diagram that I have here. The high priest. So each one of these items that they have has a purpose. And I really want to focus on, if you can see right here, the breastplate of righteousness. Now the breastplate of righteousness contained 12 precious stones, each one of them relegated to each one of the tribes of Israel. But, you know, you may know about that. However, did you know about the other two? The Urim and Thummim. So I know that I'm pronouncing them wrong because I don't speak Hebrew as of right now. But they were a black stone and a white stone. And this is a pretty simple divinatory practice. Goral, casting lots. You have a yes and a no. And so scholars, they don't really know which one was yes and which one was no. And they also use other practices with these two precious stones. It could have been onyx, and then like, I forgot what the other one, 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐴, well, a white, whatever white crystal. I don't really have that one listed right now. Okay, so for example, if they could not figure out if someone was telling the truth or not, one of the divinatory practices that they would do is that, first of all, they have to go through a ritual, purification, prayer, fasting, whatever. And then they would ask the question. And in some traditions, the two precious stones are in a bag, and they're hooked onto the breastplate, and they keep them right in here, like right in this area, okay? And so if you think about this area, we have our chakras, all right? You have like the heart, and then you have like the solar plexus and the stomach, all of this area right here. That's where they would keep the breastplate of righteousness, and then they also would have the precious stones there. So they would keep it like near around in this area. I think that this was important because it's some scriptures saying that about the heart and about knowing the heart. And I think that that may have something to do with it, but that's just for maybe another study. But I was just thinking about that just now. Okay. So, for example, like say that the townspeople, they're in an uproar because somebody may have stole something and they don't know exactly who. They'll bring the person to the high priest that they suspected. They'll go into prayer, fasting, and then they would use these precious stones for a yes or no answer. It was specifically for a yes or no answer. Some other traditions that I've read that they used it for other things, but I don't really know that much about it, so I'm not going to go into it. Can I ask for prayer? I will send you positive energy. I don't do a traditional prayer, and I'm not a traditional Christian, but I do send you positive energy, okay? It's Abiola. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but I do send you positive energy. Okay, so also think about this with the 12 precious stones. each one relegated to one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And some of these stones, actually all of them, had a unique ability or a unique property more so. And I do have a PDF on my Etsy shop going into like all of the precious stones that are in the Bible. And so with each one of these, I will have to do a separate video about them because it could be pretty entailed about all of the properties that these crystals had. But you know, some for clearing of mind, for clearing the aura, for protection, some for what else, clarity, and like, you know, just basic things that you would need if you know that you're going to go into the Holy of Holies. I already said protection, so you know, you get the drift. And they kept with the breastplate of righteousness, and I believe that the breastplate was also made with gold. So all of these precious metals, if you know anything about alchemy, then you know that precious metals, not only do they have like a substance like that could help work with your body, like gold, silver, but also they had other unique properties. They stand for other properties as far as like consciousness, when you're talking about mental and spiritual alchemy. All right, let me go into a couple of other things here. I'm just sort of kind of doing this on a whim. So let's first, I'm gonna back up a little bit. We're gonna come back to the breastplate of righteousness. Thank you, you guys, thank you. So you know that our medical industry also started with alchemy and divination. Thank you, Dimples. Thank you. And so how, like, for example, another thing that they would use, like going back to the Old Testament, now they would cast lots. So there's other forms of casting lots. So you had the straws form, then you had like using stones, other shapes and stones. They even would use bones, like from the sacrifices, that you would cast lots. They would ask questions, and these were more detailed questions. So that's why they would use, like, for just a simple yes and no with the precious stones, the Urim and Thummim. But for more detailed answers, they had little other like taking from bones from sacrifices and carving them into different shapes. Okay, so going back to, like, I'm bouncing around, to the divinatory practices, medical industry. So you know how Moses had his staff, and I've spoken about this so many times. So one facet of this staff, if you know about the goddess Asherah, that she represents all sacred trees. Actually, we are just left out of Ash Wednesday, and we're heading into like this holiday that's also associated with the celebration of sacred trees. And that's where the origins of that celebration came from Asherah, the goddess Asherah. So with this sacred tree and with Moses' staff, you know that Moses, he grew up in Egypt, right? And that's a highly magical, mystical place that they represent in their symbolism, but they also had goddesses too, divine feminine energy. He had his staff, he got his magic knowledge from there, and then he also married a Mennonite woman, and the high priest of Midian. He went to go stay over there for some time, and he was a high priest too. So all of these practices that the high priest would do, the high priest of Midian did as well. So Moses had access to that information. Under, what was his name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the high priest of Midian, Jethro, that's his name, Jethro. Of course, he's going to hand that information down to his son-in-law because he saved his daughter's life. So he was indebted to him. So he taught him a lot of the other mystic arts. He learned some in Egypt, and then he learned some in the desert with the high priest of Midian. From there, I mean, I also have other stories about Moses on my channel about all the stuff that he did. He did some stuff. Okay, he did some stuff. But when you look at, let me see if I can't find a diagram in here. I know that I have the diagram on that video, but when he held up the staff with the snake on it, when the children of Israel was in the desert, you know, when they were bitten by the snakes, but then he used the snake on the staff to heal them when they looked upon it. Why? The thing about snakes and why they also are strongly connected to alchemy is because of their dual nature. If someone is bit by a snake, a poisonous snake, they can unalive. But with that same poison, they can also be healed. And that's why the medical industry also uses the snake on a staff. And you see the wings, that represents a higher level of consciousness. It also represents ascension. Okay? And so he also known to be related to magic and alchemy. He's also one of the forefathers that they would use in like alchemical references. So he had like a priestly quality to him. He was one of the ones that went on the high mountain, received instructions from God. But the thing about this too is that Moses had access to so much other information. So you know that with Yahweh, and you know that Yahweh was also part of the pantheon of with Asherah and Baal. But you know, as they separated and they had their allotment of people. Okay, and so when he would go up on that mountain, he would receive information, right? That represents an awakening, an ascension. If you look at this, like the ascension and receiving like messages from what they say, like the gods, like Mercury, Hermes, all of that. So this what that represents right there. And he would go on the high mountain and receive all that information and bring it down to the people. See if anyone has any questions. Yeah, if you are interested in my book, it is in my shop. I also have oracle cards, journals there. Pray, I need to know what to do. Okay. If y'all have any questions, let me know. Excuse me. Thank you for the hearts. If anyone wants to come up and they want to share, then you can come up. It's always good to talk to like another person. Oh, invite. Okay. Now I have another note here. So scholars, they do not know if, like, well, they do know about like yes and no. Not sure about which one was what. But the interpretation of what could have been on these stones could have been lights and truth or perfections. But once again, scholars don't really know. So this is possibly how the way they looked. Two smooth stones. Some instances where they used these two stones. We have Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12. Leviticus 19:26. Isaiah 8:19 through 20. Okay, I'm gonna read what I have here. Okay, in several biblical passages, as in the ones I just mentioned, divination is condemned and categorized with the occult practices like sorcery, fortune telling, and necromancy. Now, I am going to highlight a little bit about this. Okay, so with sorcery, there's different types of sorcery. So people, like a lot of times when I'm on panels or whatever, and they find out that I'm a Christian witch or in mystic, they like to highlight the, especially in the New Testament, about sorcery. Oh, you shouldn't practice sorcery. It says it in Revelations. But that type of sorcery is pharmakia. And pharmakia, once again, is related to the medical industry. That's where we get our pharmaceuticals from. And throughout, from ancient cultures all the way up to now, it was a long process using divination, using magic and alchemy. And through that process, then now we have the modern medical industry. That's why they use this symbol. Okay. Necromancy. And necromancy is like any type of communion with the unalived. Okay, so we can see in the New Testament where Jesus used necromancy. And I also have to say this too, that there's a category of, it's called magic miracles, thaumaturgy. And that's a Greek word for like pretty much magic miracles. So they're interchangeable. And this in like fast forwarding a little bit ahead, like to maybe about Apostle Paul's era, that they had professions where people would hire those that were known to be thaumaturgists. They would take the request to them. They would arrange a payment, and then they would get either an incantation, because at that time, it wasn't common for people to be able to read. So therefore, if they had alchemy books, how could they read those alchemy books? So they would enlist someone to either create an incantation for them or either perform the miracle for them. And that's where you can have Jesus doing a magic miracle, performing thaumaturgy. Let's see some other instances here. Okay, God's plan, rather attempting to control. Okay, I said about necromancy. So when Lazarus was in the cave or in the tomb, and he pretty much resurrected Lazarus, that would be considered thaumaturgy, a magic miracle, because some could look at that and say, oh, he used magic because he summons him, and he may have did some type of gesture, or he may have did something else before he even came into that space. And some would just say it's a miracle. So it was interchangeable during that time period. However, divinatory practices were reserved for the select groups such as high priests, prophets, apostles, and others in higher positions. For example, Elijah's miracles in 2 Kings 4 and 6, or the use of divinatory tools like the Urim and Thummim, like I've been showing you guys, the black and white stone. This is also a reference to like other alchemy, like the checkerboard floor later in antiquity, where they would use like the black and white, and that represents like duality. So pretty much like yes or no duality, light and dark. Where am I? Okay. By the high priest in Exodus 28 and 30, or casting lots by the disciples in Acts 1:26, to foresee and clarity of the will of God. So it's like they would use these tools not to replace God in these situations, but to communicate with God. But these also have origins in other cultures, like the Canaanite culture, Samaria, all of those other surrounding areas. They would also take their practices and integrate their own little spin to it, and demonize those other cultures' practices. Yeah, we can still see that throughout history now, marked off. I'm just trying to stay on the high priest right now as much as possible, because I want to make my way through the book. Let me find something else here. Oh, like I was talking about, you see? Serpent magic with Moses. If y'all can see very well. Okay. Okay, Moses using sympathetic magic with the healing serpent on the staff. Incense. A mixture of incense. You know how like some people would say that, oh, you're burning incense, that's of whatever. Sometimes I have heard some people say, of the devil or whatever, but the high priest also burned incense to clear the space. Besides using like the bones from the offerings, like the burnt offerings, the bones to carve them into like divinatory pieces, they also would take other parts of the sacrifices, like the horns. And another thing that people do not understand too, this is a side note when it comes to like high priests and offerings, like the bloodiest day of the year is the Day of Atonement. So this was like a huge holy day for the people. So they would take their best unblemished animals to go be sacrificed. But the thing that, most people don't highlight is that the high priest benefited from this, because that was also part of their payment. So depending on like the sin of the person, and of course they had to, confess to the priest. Sometimes it will be in front of the whole congregation or a group of people, but during the Day of Atonement, they'll, tell their sin, and then the priest will say, well, this is how many goats or whatever animal it may be, a ram, that you need to bring, so that way we'll get our payment. So out of that sacrifice, besides just slaughtering them and then just burning all of the animals, they would take their payment out of that. And out of that payment is how the priestly group survived. They took payment. And so this is where they also get the idea of tithing. Like later on, as you see, if you read throughout the Bible, then you start seeing the ideology of tithing started to take shape and form. And that's how now we still have tithes and offerings and given to the church. I think I'm going to save this for another discussion right here. That will be for another discussion, because I think I am going to read a little bit about it. As mentioned in Leviticus 19:26 and 30, these scriptures caution against engaging with medium spirits, divination, or seeking omens. However, when translated, Av and Yadoni are terms in Hebrew to describe specific types of sorcery and divination practices. Ab and Ab, if you can see the spelling, O-V, or either sometimes O-B. You can research this yourself as well. These were specific types of practices that typically required some type of sacrifice. It also, this is I know, I also have a video about this on my actual page. Now, this is going to sound crazy, but I've done so much research. I love to do this type of stuff and, read about this. So this is going to really sound out there, but however, there's another practice that the witch of Endor could have used. So scholars say that there could have been several different practices that she used that were forbidden. One, until the 1930s, ventriloquism was considered to be almost like demon possession, speaking from the gut. So when it says pit, that is one scholarly thought that she was speaking like a ventriloquist, and it wasn't really Samuel, but it was really her using the forbidden practice, because it's something about the gut is considered to be sacred, because if the gut sours, then it pretty much can affect the entire body. That was the idea. Another idea is that it's this sacred bird. Let me see if I can't show y'all a picture of it. I got a picture of it in here. Let me find it. It's this weird bird. Aha, a speaking bird. It's this weird bird. And this is not how it looks. That's my artwork. It's not a whole lot of information about how the way the bird looks. But anyway, this bird could either speak on its own. So for example, the specific practice that's forbidden, they would take this forbidden bird and they would either enchant the bird or either take the beak of the bird. And it, once again, about the pit, and pit the pit. Ooh, my bad, you guys. It would take the beak of the bird and put it under the armpit, and it would speak on its own. So the forbidden practitioner would go into a trance, and then they would use the beak of the bird under the armpit, or either the bird would be off to itself and it would speak for the specific practitioner, and the person could ask any question they wanted to and they would get an answer. So that was a forbidden practice. And then the last one is that one idea about the witch of Endor is that the pit, she had a pit that was to another realm or something, and she would do her offerings there, and then that's how they either seen the apparition, the visual of the prophet Samuel there, and it was something about that sacred circle, that pit that was forbidden. So it's a lot of information that, so when you are going through and you are interested in this type of stuff, that you will know the background behind it. So therefore, no one can really convince you that, oh, this is so bad, you're doing the wrong thing. Because remember, it's not written in English. This is written over thousands of years. And so the practices change over the years. Specific type of necromancer, while the Yadoni, which I just talked about, the Yadoni, refers to a wizard that places a bone of a bird called a 𝐢𝐻 or 𝐢𝐻 in his mouth, and it speaks for itself. See, and that's also another reference. Like they would either take the beak of the bird and put it in their mouth too, and it would speak on its own. This is something else I read as well, and I didn't really put this in the book, but it was some other thing that I read about. It's a lot of references to the gut in the culture, and it's hidden in the language, but we speak English. Like the storehouse are either like the wineskins. You ever heard of that, like with the wineskins? And that is also related to the gut. So it's something about like with the gut, and the gut isn't healthy. That's why they would use wormwood. That's a herb that helps to cleanse the gut. The wormwood is also used, it's like a bitter herb. And so these bitter herbs help to cleanse the parasites out of the gut. And so all of these things correlate. You would not believe how much of this stuff correlates together. And that's why I find it to be so fascinating. Okay. Now, you know how people talk about demons? I have to do like a series about demons because me personally, I don't believe they're real. But anyways, so the idea sort of kind of started with the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. And the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻, when they talk about auspicious, the diviner of auspicious times, one reference was to the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. And I will go into that when I go into like demons and stuff and where these whole ideas came from. Another thing that I have recently spoke about is let me move this out of the way. Deuteronomy 18:1, and it pretty much is talking about like a forbidden practice of passing your daughter or your son through the fire, which is a practice that is unto, some say that this, I'm gonna show you a picture. Wait, where did it go? Okay, you see right here. And basically what would happen is that it was a practice that Moloch, that people would bring their children to offer to. They said some scholars say it's a deity, and then other scholars say that it's not really a deity, it's really a practice. So Moloch was a practice itself of child sacrificing. And what they would do is that they would pass their child through the fire. And I will go into that in like another discussion. A little bit about a couple of women. Just a couple. Well, one woman that I have wait, where'd my other book go? So I do mention these women in my ebook. So this is just my personal hard copy, but it's the Sacred Grail, Women and Goddesses of the Bible. Yeah, there were goddesses in the Bible. This one right here, this book is going to be thick because I have so many references. And like some of the holidays, Jewish holidays, are actually connected to like gods and goddesses linguistically and symbolically too. But anyways, I have a video on my YouTube channel, about Queen Esther. And I actually did a live here. This was like last year. And her given name was Hadassah. It's also linked to like, herbalism and the beautification. She was all about like glamour magic. Okay, so she had to spend like, I think it was like 6 months doing one type of beautification rituals, and then another 6 months. So it was like a total of a year of her glamour magic. And what really also helped her to, well, in a way helped her, like, first of all, she was already like smart and she was very inquisitive. But however, another thing I have to mention is that her cousin, that in some traditions was also her husband. Yeah, and one of the Midrash, I believe, also was one of, it was like her husband, but also her groomer, because something happened with her parents and he had to raise her from a young child. Anyways, I had the video on FD 1111 Ministries on my YouTube channel. You go there and you'll see a playlist, and I have like a whole playlist of women in the Bible and stuff. But anyway, yeah, her glamour magic oils, and her name, not Esther, but her name Hadassah, it's also, I think it's myrtle. I don't have it in this book because no, it's on the video. So go check it out, because I go into a lot of the symbolism, because also her name is linked to Venus, and then her cousin, his name is Marduk. Like, it's Mordecai, but the etymology of Mordecai, thank you, is Marduk. Marduk is also part of a pantheon of, it's Enlil, is that Gilgamesh. There we go. That's it. The Epic of Gilgamesh. And Marduk was one of the deities, one of the high deities. And so Marduk, if you look etymologically, that his name is linked to that. And I thought that was very interesting. And you'll be so surprised of how many other mythologies are tied into the Bible. And that's why I find it to be so interesting. Thank you guys so much for the hearts. And if anybody want to come up here, you can come on up here. That's fine. I am totally open to that, because I'm just chatting. I'm just like, let's see here. I don't want to go into too much stuff. Like I was telling y'all about like the offerings and the sacrifices and stuff. You see here? Yeah, blood magic. And let's see here. Ooh, it's a whole lot of practices of divination when it came to, like I was saying, with the Day of Atonement and the scapegoat. I have another channel called the School of Biblical Divination and Magic, and I believe you can find both of these links in my bio. Now there I have like about 3 different videos about the scapegoat and all of the rituals that they would do with the scapegoat. So if you don't know, I'm pretty sure you probably have heard of that phrase, like someone is the scapegoat. Pretty much they're like putting the blame onto one person and, you know, doing that. So with this scapegoating, this was a older practice before the Israelite priests started to utilize that practice. So basically, it typically was a ram, unblemished, and they would put all of the sins of the people onto the to the ram. Okay, and so also I have another PDF on my Etsy shop. I go into like pharmakia and the practices, the 3 practices of pharmakia, and it also mentions about the scapegoat and the practices. So they would use like an elixir. They also would do this with humans too, but that's for, maybe I should say that for another discussion. But anyway, so like they place all all of the sins onto the scapegoat. And some of the practices included like they would let the scapegoat go out into the desert, and sometimes they just let the scapegoat go out there, and then eventually it's near a cliff. Eventually the scapegoat will fall off the cliff and, you know, to the ground, and they will go and read the entrails to gain, you know, understanding of what God was trying to tell them. People don't know that. Another practice they would do is actually give the scapegoat. Now I'm going to switch to like more like the Greek Roman traditions and what they would do. And I've even read that some of the other cultures would do this too. So they would take like either like their slaves or the prisoners, and out of that they would cast lots to see who was going to be the one. And then sometimes they would like have a group of them and give them an elixir. They have like a festive celebration, and then eventually like either sometimes they would have them duke it out, and then the last one would be like the scapegoat, and then they would just let that person go off and just keep walking. And you can never come back over here because you have all the sins of our people on you, so you are forbidden to come back. Sometimes they would unalive them and have them as a sacrifice, like that. I mean, there's so many practices that are connected to that. Anointed oils. Hi, Brooklyn. Lion. Okay, the Old Testament God is very similar to the Book of the Dead from Egypt. Oh, okay. Crazy Bear. Yeah, I haven't gotten into the Book of the Dead. It's so much in the Bible. I'm still on the Bible. I'm still on the Bible. I read every day, and I'm always studying and reading and researching. I have not really got to a whole lot of books. I got into some of the uncanonized books that are very interesting. But I'm still in the Bible. I haven't even got an opportunity to move to the Quran or anything, because it's so, to me, I've considered it to be so juicy. It's so much in there. It's so much in there. Oh, you like my nose? Oh, thank you. I think like you're the second person out on this live but have said it before, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's the nose ring. May God be with you. I'll be. Oh, okay. Brooklyn, I don't give people permission to pray for me though. Okay. But you can definitely go pray for others though. And I don't believe in the mythology of the devil. I know the historic timeline of the character of the devil. I know what the devil represents in alchemy and everything like that. Yeah, it's just we have to overcome the devil, our animalistic nature at times. That's it. Yeah, much blessings to you too. You're new to this journey. How long? I've been, gosh, when I really think about it and how Christianity is like witchcraft, I feel like I've been practicing it all my life because, like, you know, been in the church and everything. But consciously, let me think, maybe about 3-4 years, maybe. But it started off really slowly. Actually, it's been longer than that, maybe about 5, because at first I got my first tarot deck. Oh man, let me see. Yeah, it's been about maybe longer. I gotta really sit and think. Like about 7-8 years though, because I got my first tarot deck, and that's when I was really like, I was curious. I was inquisitive, and I got my first tarot deck. Let me see if I have it over here. It was like a deck like this. Is not the same one, but a deck like this. It was something like this, but not this exact deck. I don't have that, my very first tarot deck. And what I did, because I still was like, I wasn't sure, you know, I was curious. So what I would do, I didn't look up any meanings at first. I just would, you know, do like this, and then I'll pick a card, and then I would just intuitively try to feel what it meant. And then eventually I started to look up the meanings of the cards. And then from there, I started one YouTube channel, and I erased that one because it was like, and then that's when I was just curious. Then I started at that time it was like another name, but FD 1111 Ministries. And then when I look at the cards, I see scriptures. That's my mind. That's the way how my mind works. So I would have like different characters. Like, let me see, I can't find. It's like one in here that reminds me of. This one would remind me of Queen Esther. And let me see, this will remind me of like Samson and Delilah. And then sometimes I will also feel like this was like the Christ, Jesus, overcoming, like, you know, at that time I sort of kind of like thought of this as like our lower nature, what some people call the devil, but I don't believe in the devil. So, and when I started, oh, this is another deck right here. When I started my YouTube channel and I started to see the symbolism and how like it reminded me of scriptures, then I started to do extended Bible studies using tarot, Bible, and alchemy. That's actually what I would say, tarot, Bible, and alchemy, because all of these are also related to like different houses of the zodiac. You also have different elements, you know, like fire. Here we go. This right here always, this actually like, oh, gosh, messages coming in, but hold on, I'm gonna show you right here. Like the alchemy staff. This would remind me of Moses. And the hermit card, Moses, the hermeticist. And that's what made it so fun. So long story short, I know I went on a tangent. Long story short, it's been like about 8, maybe almost 9 years already when I first started. And then from there, it really just like gradually, and then it started to pick up a whole lot. And I started to being exposed to different ideologies and information, and it was just so fascinating to me. I felt like I was a little kid in a candy store. And I still feel that way. Like when I find like a new clue to a question that I had, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is so exciting. I'm totally geeking out. Should we pull some cards? I like doing stuff like that. Do I have my deck up here? Packaged. Comes with the book. It's the outside of the deck. And see the symbolism. Each one of the cards has a scripture. So you can use this with devotion and divination. For example, you sitting down doing your journaling, whatever. A message from you fill in the blank. Whatever you want to fill in. God, your angels, your ancestors. I am majesty. Then it has like a little statement on here. You are part of the majestic command. And this is Psalms 93:1. So you can take that scripture and you can go to your Bible. And you can look up that scripture and that could be your devotion. But you see the symbolism on here. I am a speaker. Thank you. Your voice has power. Let it be heard. Psalms 29:3-9. You see? And then I also have like symbols here. B. The gold on the side. I am perfect timing. The time will come when and how God has destined. 2 Peter 3:9. And you see like the clocks on the back. And then I have father time or mother time. Saturn back there. You have the pendulum. Because like, I don't know, it just seemed right. Because you can't really pinpoint when something may happen, if you understand. It's all within divine timing. And then you have the rainbow, which represents like promises. I am that I am. You have infinite creative potential. Exodus 3:14. Yes. Yeah, so those are on my Etsy shop. They're actually Etsy and here. Like you can find them. I think they're appended to this live. And there's 45 of them. 45 cards in with the booklet. It also has a journal that you can get with it. I didn't bring the journal. I don't know why I didn't bring it up. I left it downstairs, but yeah. Okay, we'll definitely check it out. Where do you get those? Oh, I made these. And I had like 500 decks. Now I am down to maybe about 75, about 175. Yeah. I also had like my other first deck that I created, which was more so like a, it was like angel numbers, but like not traditional angel numbers, like numbers from out the Bible, but like some additional numbers. I don't know where I put that deck at. I don't know. It's somewhere. That one, I don't know where I put that, because I only had like, I sold some of them, and then I kept one for myself. So I don't know where it is. I did something with it. Let me show y'all. Now, these aren't my decks. I didn't create these, but this is an actual tarot deck, but with angels. And then you have the opposite. I have a whole lot of tarot cards, but I don't really use them anymore. I used to use them quite frequently, but I don't really use tarot that much anymore. Yeah, so don't forget my book, The Bible's Hidden Divination and Magic. It is on here. There's also a journal that goes with this. So the way you use the journal, I didn't even bring it up here. Did I? Nope. How do we use the journal? So like, if you're like me, you take notes, right? I take a lot of notes. And to help me to keep myself organized, where I have my notes, it's the journal that looks just like this, but it's not this thick though, but it's just like this. So that way it's corresponding. So if you have your notes and your books on your shelf, you know exactly what notebook goes with what. And you can find that on my Etsy shop, but also on here. And don't forget the other books. And I'll talk to you guys later. Many blessings. I'm Minister Ashley, and good night.